Pressman, whoever said, okay, let's go. So yesterday we were talking about the two children of Yaakov, Menashe and Ephraim, and how two children of Yosef, rather, Menashe and Ephraim, and how their names represent their soul energy. Menashe means to forget. Yosef named his son Forget because he didn't want to forget his father's house. And Ephraim means to be fruitful in a difficult place. Ephrani Elkim Meresani, God has made me fruitful in the land of my pain. And Ephraim is about encountering the darkness and the exile and the place you're in, the time you're in, the circumstance you're in, and making a difference. And both of these two kinds of soul energies of not forgetting where you came from and focusing on the task at hand are, of course, two things that we need in our lives. But the question is, which is more important? And this question is going to help us towards our question, beginning of this sikha, where we asked, how come Yosef insists that Menashe should go first? And not only does he insist, but God made Menashe his firstborn. And how come Yaakov instead makes Ephraim his so to speak, firstborn, his more important child, the more important grandchild? So we've discussed the two energies of Menashe and Ephraim. We haven't gone back to Yosef and Yaakov to know who they are and why it's more important for Yosef to have a Menashe and more important for Yaakov to have an Ephraim. Although, of course, both soul energies are necessary. You got to know where you came from. You got to know what Hashem wants you to do right now. In language of Chassidus, the Chassidic lexicon, there's Ratzui, there's yearning to be closer. And then there's Shuv. Shuv means embracing what Hashem wants you to do right now. What's up right now? So you can't have just Ratzui, just yearning. You're not accomplishing anything. On the other hand, if you just focus on the task at hand, we don't think about where you came from or where you want to be, then the task at hand is pretty shallow. You're just doing things and you're not really investing soul. You're just getting the job done. So both things have to be there. The question is which one is more important and which one is more relevant and which one is first. Let us continue now. Yonatan, you know where we're up to?
I think we made it through Gimel, didn't we?
Okay. Let's go to Eis Daled then. Eis Daled. This is the reason why Yaakov says Ephraim will be greater than Menashe. We're on page 471. The goal of descending to Egypt and the goal of exile in general is for the sake of an ascent. To ascend to a higher place than the place that you were at before you descended. This is a rule in Chassidus that every descent is for the purpose of ascent. There's no such thing in God's world as just descent, as just falling down, as just going down. God is the architect of every single detail of creation, and including things that we look at as in our volition, things that we decided. And every descent is to the purpose of an ascent. There's no such thing as descent. There's either going down like this, or there's a straight going up. But every experience in every generation is heading towards the goal of the coming Mashiach. There hasn't been a generation which hasn't fulfilled its purpose. It's a very important thing to bear in mind. Looking at Jewish history, looking at our own lives, a lot of people who don't know about this and aren't conscious of Hashem's. Hashem is the one who's in charge. Kind of that perspective isn't guiding you. So then you're thinking that the goal of creation was giving the Torah, and the farther we got from that point, the worse off we are, and we'll never get back there. And the rabbis are having different campaigns, and there are different WhatsApp groups and different things, but we're never going to really get back to that, and we're always going down. It's not true. Everything that happens is for Hashem's hand, and it's for the purpose of Aliyah. That's the goal, to have an elevation. In fact, the Hasidim say that if you look at Chabad Hasidus, you'll find a recurring question, a question that's asked in more by Marim than others. Why did the soul descend to this world? The reason this question is repeated time and again is not so much for the answer as it is for us to ask this question. The question, why has there been a descent, belies a perspective that I'm here for a reason. It doesn't happen by itself. So every descent is for the purpose of an ascent. Now we say ascent if it's being arranged. The Gemara says it's being arranged by anyone who wants to have something accomplished. So then the ascent must be to a higher place than the place you descended from. In the language of the Gemara, Zavin v'zivin tagid ikri. If you buy and sell for the same price, you're not making any money. So if Hashem just wants to bring us back to heaven where we were before we started off in this world, there's no business has been done. So it must be that the Yerida, the descent, is for not just to ascend back to where we were before, but to ascend to a higher place. It's not enough not to forget your father's house. When you were in heaven, you weren't forgetting your father's house. When you were in the shtetl in Europe, you didn't forget your father's house. That the goal of leaving Europe and leaving Gan Eden and leaving your past isn't just in order that you shouldn't forget. If that was the goal, then why do you have to leave? There's another point, and this is the main point, to bring additional light within the exile, so that through this descent, there should be an elevation, that God should make me fruitful in the land of my pain. Hashem wants to make something happen here. It's not just about not forgetting. Mitzad Sheni, on the other hand, who is the first son? Menashe Abacher. Menashe is the firstborn son. Kilun Shaleidiv is Galus. Kolemer Begol Yilmaisa Kay Menashe Ephraim. They Shia Efshaliful Bulav Beres Ani De La Gil Adag Shafani Elkim. Also next column. Asay Teiv Yesh Tchila Deglav Techas Yesh Vasar Hagolus Sumirad is Chirs and Istmid is Kashas and Beisavi. Who is born first? Looking at things in a down-to-earth way. Who is born first? Who has to be there first? In order to ensure that you're going to get the job right and do your mission, and not to be derailed by the various influences and winds of the world, you have to take some precautions. You have to know that you are dedicated to this mission. You won't change course. There was a discussion in NASA about sending people on a 100-year mission into space, and about various frontiers that could be accomplished, that could be reached by a 100-year spaceship going out there, and people being born and dying in the ship. They had a whole discussion. This wasn't a practical discussion. This was just this is Dr. Velva Green was part of this discussion, because he said there was some kind of like a recess. So I guess in NASA they don't play basketball. So during recess they discuss, what are you doing a 100-year mission to who knows where. So one of the things that came up in this discussion was, how can we make sure that the people who are born in this mission don't decide to not care about the mission? Don't decide to one day, 50 years later, and you were born in this mission and everyone else has died. Why would you why would you continue? Why is it important to you? So in order for the Yidden to be successful in their mission, to make the world a home for Hashem, the first thing they need to do is they need to not forget their father's house. They need to make sure that they're sur meirah, that they don't get into trouble, that they don't get jaded and coarsened and enveloped by the various winds of the world, and let go of what they know, what was dear to us before we left heaven, before we left our father's house. That's step one. There's step two. Step two is to be fruitful where you are. But in order to make sure you could do a step two, you have to be able to stay connected to where you came from. So who is born first? What is step one of the day? What's step one of education? What's step one of getting the job done? It's Menashe. Don't forget where you came from. Ephraim. However, the goal of the exile isn't just that we shouldn't get dirty and we shouldn't get soiled by our being here in this world. The goal is we should make a difference here. Ephraim, The goal is that there should be something accomplished here in this world. And therefore, Ephraim is more important. Ephraim is the goal. So who is born first? What do you need first? What's your first step? Your first step is to Ephraim. Your first step is to know where you came from. You need to make sure that you're connected to where you came from. But being connected to where you came from isn't the goal. You're never going to get as connected as before your arrival in Egypt. Your arrival in Egypt is, and even if you could be as connected as you were before you left your father's house, left Jacob's house, if Joseph could accomplish, he'll be in Egypt and be as connected to his father's house as he was. Nothing has been accomplished because he was that way when he was 17 before he left his father's house. So the goal is clearly to make a difference. The goal is clearly to be fruitful. And that's why if looking at purpose, what's more important? Much more important is Ephraim. It's more important that you're making a difference. On the other hand, to get there, to make that happen, who's born first? To make that happen, you have to have some Manasseh energy. You have to remember where you came from. So if we're talking about purpose, Ephraim is the goal. You can't decide when you're supposed to be giving let's say, a class of Torah to your coworkers and during lunchtime. You can't decide, going to daven mincha for 15 more minutes and be closer to your source. And it feels great. You're going to, if I'm bringing, you're going to sing a niggun, and it's great. And you got some. Sorry, guys, I just got caught away, swept away with my memories of Krenitz. It's nice that you have memories of Krenitz, and you should have memories of Krenitz. And you should sing the songs of Krenitz, and that there's a time for that. But if you're going to sing the songs of Krenitz in a way that's going to derail you from what you're supposed to be doing, boom, you've just forgotten the main goal. So the more important overarching mission is be fruitful. But to be fruitful, you have to remember where you came from. Everyone follow that. Any questions?
So you're saying to bring longer or to daven longer? I lost you there.
Zev, I'll take either of those. Those are great things. I'll take either.
So the next time it was like 10:30 at night and someone has to go from a fabringen, he should stay or he should go?
At least stay for 5 more minutes. Okay.
In other words, we sing the Guddim to remember who we are, and then we go out and do the work.
Right, exactly. So what's more important? Is a farbrengen more important? No, the work is more important. But you can't do that work unless you're farbrengen, unless you're davening, unless you're connecting to your source. Unless there's the ruts, unless you have the yearning, then you don't know what you're trying to do even. Rabbi Shmuel Azimov of Shalom, a very interesting thing the Rebbe told him. The Rebbe told him he should always teach. Now, Rabbi Azimov is arguably the most influential shliach of our Rebbe. He continues to have, after his passing, a domino effect of thousands and thousands of people, literally, that he has caused to return to their Yiddishkeit. And despite his incredible success and how busy he was, and created an empire of so many institutions throughout Paris and throughout France, and yet the Rebbe told him every day you should teach Torah. You should teach a class. He was a school teacher. I think, to me, that just means like, remember what this is all about. When you're sitting with a child and telling them Kama Salafa, you know where you come from or where it's supposed to go. I don't know. That's my take. Definitely that's accomplished as well by doing that. Whether I'm sure there's other reasons as well. How would I know? Anyways, going further and getting a little deeper in this conversation. There are various things that Golus can contribute to our aliyah, to our being elevated. Golus can cause an elevation in us in various ways. Number one, as toikaf and neshama. Shekol oyev the davar menugad meitz lefilas misnet sachen. Kvish nemer tzamach nafshi dafka leshi be'ertzia v'ahavai yiyu kem kedesh chazisicha. The descent brings out the power of the neshama, not to be influenced by the darkness of the exile. Every enemy, every opposition arouses, as we just discussed earlier this week in the Maimer Vasilagani, Every opposition arouses the power of victory. And as we learned in the Maimer, the power of victory is rooted higher than the highest soul powers and even the transcendent soul powers of desire and pleasure. Victory takes a deeper root. So what arouses that actually with that feeling of, I have to win this? Where does it come from? It comes specifically because of the opposition. If there would not be opposition, this would not exist. So the Baal Shem Tov, the Pasuk and Tehillim, I yearn for you, Hashem Tzamach Nafshi. Why do I yearn for you? Because I'm be'eretz Yeva'ayef, because I am in a very dry, parched land. That's why I'm so thirsty for you. So the Baal Shem Tov continues and explains the end of this verse. I will see you, I want to see you in the holy place. The Baal Shem Tov says, I wish that I could see you as well in the holy place as I could see you in the unholy place. It's easier in a way to see Hashem in the unholy place than it is in the holy place. Because it's only in the unholy place where there's opposition that you have this incredible yearning and this incredible sense of, I gotta win this, that you don't have when you're in the more pleasant, holy environment. I'm sure this is something that we've all experienced. You know, when you're trying to get something done in an unfriendly environment, and you know this is important, and you just feel a closeness over there. You feel like, and I just have a memory in my head just popped up. I'm thinking about Elwood, Australia. We made this Friday night dinner for these Holocaust survivors, and they really had a lot of menashe in their system, a lot of nostalgia. They loved singing the Yiddish theater songs, especially the ones that you're not really supposed to say. These people are great. Anyways, but I remember feeling so close, like I'm in the middle of, I'm in Australia, you know, I'm running from here to there, feeling, I'm so close to the Rebbe. That's how I felt, so close to the Rebbe. This is what the Rebbe wants me to do. And specifically when you're in middle of like where are you? And Yonatan's thinking, yeah, well, that doesn't sound very dark and distant. That sounds like a very nice place. All right, fine. But just it's far, it's just it's just thousands of miles away. Either way, so there's one accomplishment of the darkness of the exile. One accomplishment is that the darkness of the exile lends to the revelation of the power of the soul, the unshakable bond of the soul to God. Not unshakable, like America always says it has a bond with Israel. That's the refrain that all of our presidents use. We have an unshakable dedication to Israel's security. No, the Neshama actually has an unshakable bond to Hashem, and you see that unshakable bond specifically during the exile. That's one thing the exile accomplishes. It reveals a higher power than the Neshama. You see the infinity of the Neshama. Number two, going deeper. When the through the descent of the exile, there is a deeper energy than Neshama that is revealed, an energy that does not have any limitations whatsoever. And therefore, not only are we able to remain intact, able to remain whole, not be affected by the exile, but more, we're able to lift up our surroundings to be the way they're supposed to be, to transform the darkness itself to light. That's two accomplishments that exile brings. It highlights the power of the neshama not to be affected, the unshakable bond of the neshama to Hashem, and the power of the neshama to transform the darkness of the golus, to actually make a difference, to transform the darkness to light. In addition to highlighting the power of the soul, not only to have an unshakable bond with Hashem, to highlight how it doesn't get changed, but more how the neshama has an even greater power. The neshama could even cause an influence to its surrounding. Besides the conversation about the neshama's infinite power, let's also talk about the impact of the neshama. Item number one of the neshama's realization in Gullus is the neshama is now it's exposed, it's highlighted. The neshama's deeper bond with Hashem and not being affected by the darkness. There's another deeper power layer of the neshama's energy, an infinite layer, which allows the neshama to transform the exile. But the conversation in item 2 is about the neshama's infinite power to transform the exile. It's still about the neshama's infinite power. Then there's a third item. The third item is by the neshama transforming the darkness to the light. It's not just revealing something the neshama had before. The neshama has this power to transform darkness to light, and that's something which is infinite. But by the neshama actually transforming the darkness to light, there's something that is added to the neshama that wasn't there before. Just like when a Baal Tshuva has sinned and returns to Hashem, he has something that's added to him. The sins that he has done are something that tzaddik can never, you can never create the kind of mitzvahs that a Baal Tshuva can create with his sins. And therefore, there's something that is added now to the neshama that wasn't there before, that never could have been there before. In other words, the first two items are things that were in the neshama already, and were exposed through this experience. Then there's something that's new, that's brought to the neshama. What's new is that by the neshama actually affecting this change, there is an additional light from the surroundings being transformed to light that now shines something to the neshama that the neshama didn't have before.
Can you summarize the second point again?
Okay. The second point is that the neshama has an infinite power, infinite to not only stay whole wherever it is, but to actually impact its surroundings and change it. That's something the neshama has in it. When there's item number 3 is that when you actually change the surroundings, the neshama receives something from her surroundings. The neshama receives something from the additional light that she has created. It reminds me of how Chassidus talks about the marriage of the godly soul and the animal soul, and how the animal soul is maybe selfish and animalistic, but there is an advantage the animal soul has over the godly soul, and that is that the animal soul is an animal, and whatever it wants with such intensity that the godly soul is such a gentleman compared to the animal soul. The animal soul grabs things. The animal soul jumps at things. The godly soul is very polite, very, very sincere, but very boring in a way compared to the animal soul. Animal soul is very, very excitable, very, very, very enthusiastic, and the neshama influences the animal soul to run after Hashem. To run. The godly soul doesn't run in the same way the animal soul does. The godly soul is a gentleman who walks in an orderly way. The godly soul pursues Hashem in a yearning. There's a love there. King Solomon wrote Song of Songs about the love of the godly soul for Hashem. But he also added a line about the impact of the animal soul on the godly soul. King Solomon writes, "Draw me after you, and we will run." So you're drawing me after you means you're inspiring one part of me, my godly soul. But when you do that, when you inspire my godly soul, and my godly soul impacts my animal soul, then both of us start running. Not just the animal soul starts to run. The godly soul wasn't running before. Now the godly soul is also running. The godly soul receives something from the incredible new light of the animal soul that it wasn't there before. So there's something that the neshama, the two first energies of the neshama, two first impacts of the exile on the neshama for good, that are both things the neshama had inherently and are now exposed. The neshama has the ability to stay steadfast and connected to Hashem, an unshakable bond between the soul and Hashem. That's one power of the neshama. Then there's an infinite power to transform the darkness to light. Okay, the neshama had that before. Now there's something that the neshama is receiving from its impact. The neshama, okay, here we go back to memory lane again. I'm thinking about Clark University Passover Seder in Worcester, Massachusetts, and one of the attendees of the Seder was this young, I don't know what year she was in college, but she was very attracted to one section of the Haggadah. She was attracted to the section of the Haggadah where we say the words, "For his kindness is everlasting," and she was asking about it and wondering about it and thinking about it. And I tell you, till today, when I say that the lines of Kilu Elam Chasta, not just on the Seder night, but often I think about Kilu Elam Chasta, God's kindness everlasting. Now, I had heard those words and had said those words thousands of times before that Seder night. But I learned, and I created the environment. I taught the whole room how to say Kilu Elam Chasta, his kindness everlasting. But I had no idea what those words really meant. And by them saying Kilu Elam Chasta and being into it, Kilu Elam Chasta. Okay, here, one more member. Huh?
The rest of us think of Yossi River.
Another trip in memory lane. I went to upstate New York on Hanukkah to visit jails. Jails are places which are full of godly light. People who are in jail, unfortunately, are souls that have gone to hell. And when they come out of hell, I know that there are no innocent people there are no guilty people in prison. Everyone has this reason why it wasn't their fault or whatever. But I want to tell you my experience. My experience is that I meet souls in prison, whether they're guilty or not guilty, they're on fire. There was one gentleman who we had this not little for bringing in the prison, and one Jew, he asked if he could sing a song. He wanted just to sing those few lines of the davening. And I'm telling you, I say those lines of davening on Shabbos, and I think about that Hanukkah night. How you're so into it. And so there's something that's added to the neshama by neshama impacting the surroundings. Neshama doesn't have by there's something that you have inside yourself, and something you receive from your own influence. That's a third element. Okay, should we go further, or any other questions?
It's like tempering steel. You have the steel and you heat it up, and then you beat it with a hammer and plunge it into cold water, and it's harder than it was before. It goes through that transformation process. We're tempering our souls.
Right. The point is something's added to the soul wasn't there before. That's item number 3. Item number 1 and 2, they were there before. Item number 3 was not. Let's go a little further. Lefi anal yuvan ahevda ben Menashe Ephraim. Now we can understand the difference between Menashe and Ephraim. Shnei Menashe Ephraim barim shel Yosef. Both Menashe and Ephraim are children of Yosef. Moitzin lepelos inyonei v'avidasei. And they both accomplish what Yosef wants to accomplish, what Yosef is about. Yosef Hashem Yosef shel Acher koleimar nitvases ha'itesefes ha'masaves v'entzois avid begolos. Yosef is about what is added through our efforts in the exile. The word Yosef means to add. Yosef is about the addition that we receive through the exile. Dr. Ressman, there's some strong background noise on your thing. Okay, so there is a blessing, or the reason why Yosef was given his name. Yaakov said when Yosef was born, Rachel said when Yosef was born, "May Hashem grant me another child." And the Ressman is still there. It's still there. I'll put you on mute because may God grant me another child. The word "another" means also something which is distant, something that's foreign, something that's not connected to holiness. What Yosef is able to do is to make another, someone who is a stranger, and help them realize that they're not really a stranger, they're really a child of God. Yosef is about the transformation of the otherness, of the darkness to light. Bein acher, to make someone who feels that they're a stranger and help them realize they're not a random Jew, help them realize they're really a child of Hashem. That's the role of Yosef. Bein acher, to transform the acher, the guy who feels like a stranger, and make him realize he is a God's child. And in this itself, tomorrow, there's 2 levels. Go ahead. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, that is not what a rando is. The rando is the guy that shows up to the Farbrengen to eat food and not participate. Not participate. Now you might be saying, oh, he's absorbing the godly light, but I thought Farbrengens were about camaraderie and actually solving problems and leaving with a ispak klaria umeira clarity of, wow, I need to change my life. So when there's people just sitting there and shoveling cholent in their mouth, you know, that's a rando. And yes, I still have work to do.
I'm glad you think so. The work we have to do is the person feels like he doesn't belong there, right? But it may be brought there by his yearning for the cholent. But the fact that he's there means that you have something you could share with him that he ordinarily wouldn't ever come, but the cholent brought him there. So isn't the fact that he's there a sign that he brought next to you that you're able to help him? Doesn't that make him more in the sense of a stranger to the Farbrengen, and you're able to make him realize that, no, you should be at home up here, there's something special going on? Okay.
Help him get some more cholent.
Help him get more cholent. Very good. That's more of an Ephraim way of thinking. You know, as Baal Shem Tov taught, that you help a Jew physically, not just because you want to help him spiritually later. That's later. Helping them spiritually is a second step. Helping the person physically is the first step. That's something that has intrinsic value, and it hopefully that will lead also to helping someone spiritually as well. But just giving a Jew a bowl of cholent is the full reason that Hashem came to the world, to do a favor. No. All right, we continue. Have a great day, Mechamar Chai. Great day, Reb Zev. Great day, Yonatan. Great day, Dr. Pressman. Great day, Mechamendel. Great day, Jeff. Great day, Reb Beryl. And great day, Reb Aryeh.